Hey all you people, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Now I realize it's been a while since I posted any GTI content of any sort, so I'm going to take a moment and just update you on how the GTI build is going so far. Last time the GTI was on the channel, there were only a few modifications done to it, those being the diverter valve spacer, a Unitronic downpipe, cold air intake, and a 93 octane tune. But since then I've done a little bit more. Early this year, I took the GTI on the track and pushed it well beyond its limits, kind of in order to see what else needed to be done to make the car perform better. And besides an inexperienced driver, I found that its major shortcomings were the lack of traction coming out of the corners, clutch slippage in the mid RPM range, understeer, and a lack of chassis stiffness. So I assembled a shopping list and started to put my YouTube revenue back into some car parts. First on my list was a better clutch. The slipping clutch was also starting to affect my daily driving, not just my track driving. So I decided to go with the Ecs Stage 2 clutch kit, which comes with a single mass flywheel, friction disc, pressure plate, throwout bearing, and hardware. This seemed to be a really good value clutch for the performance. The single mass flywheel would allow the engine to rev up quicker, and being 33% lighter than a stock flywheel would help reduce the amount of parasitic loss to the wheels. Along with the clutch kit, I also ordered the billet aluminum rear main seal upgrade, since the 2-liter TSIs are prone to leaking. Next on my list were lowering springs, to lower the car's center of gravity and help reduce body roll, as well as improve the stance of the car. Now, I know that going with a full coilover kit is better, because by only installing lowering springs, it can lead to premature wear on certain parts of your drivetrain and suspension. But I was on a strict budget and decided to go with some H&R springs. These springs have a slightly stiffer spring rate than the OEM springs, but apparently they're still comfortable for daily use. And once the springs settle, it should give me a drop of about 1.5 inches. Now, after a lot of people modify their car's ride height, their cars get a sunken in look to them, where it looks like they just have broken suspension. So I ordered the Ecs flush kit with high quality hub-centric spacers to give the car a slightly more aggressive stance. The spacers are 10mm in the front and 15 in the rear. Next up on my list was something to help reduce the GTI's chassis flex. I ended up buying the Eurosport K Brace. This goes behind the rear seats and mounts to the strut towers there. This would help keep the rear wheels planted around fast turns and help reduce understeer. I was hoping it would also help minimize the cabin creaking on uneven road surfaces. Finally, the last large item on my list was a Wavetrac Limited Slip Differential with ARP hardware. I was debating this one for a while because it's pricey and really tough to install, but I eventually pulled the trigger. You can read up on the different kinds of limited slip differentials, but they all serve the same general purpose to help send torque to the driven wheel with the most grip, unlike the car's stock open differential. Also, while the transmission was out of the car, I figured it was a good idea to replace the brass shift forks with steel shift forks, which are more resistant to bending and braking during hard shifts. Another thing I ended up doing was buying the Subframe Deadset collar kit, because the VW torque-to-yield bolts tend to stretch out over time, leading to the subframe just creaking and sliding around. And after I disconnected everything, I just couldn't manage to get all the suspension lined up again. So embarrassingly, I had to have the GTI towed to the local VW dealer, and the truck driver literally couldn't roll my car off the flatbed because the front wheels were just cocked in 2 different directions. So he had to back the flatbed up into the garage, and they had to lift my car off the back of the truck.
It's where the pros come in, right here.
To top off the list, I got some polyurethane control arm bushings, upgraded shifter linkage bushings, and high-quality redline transmission fluid. So, did I end up getting everything installed? For the most part, yeah. It took about 3 months for the Wavetrac to come in, but once it finally did, I set up an appointment with my friends at M&N Auto down in Falmouth to start having the work done. It was a long process, but we eventually got all the new parts in, and I filmed the entire thing over the course of a few days. Consider subscribing to the channel to see that video when I post it. After I got the car back from the shop, I set off for a quick 7,000-mile road trip to Chicago, Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. Also consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see that trip video.
Now it's official, boys. Let's go.
All right, we're here with Brent.
Oh yeah.
So, what are my final thoughts on the mod so far? After driving it for a while, I really think that all of these modifications were worth every single penny. I mean, I can finally put the power down to the ground from this torquey little engine without crazy clutch slip or wheel spinning. I also found that K brace on the rear strut towers makes a huge difference with the chassis flex and that creaking noise. The springs are pretty good. I love the look of the car, but I am getting a little bit of rubbing on the fenders under hard cornering, and the ride is a little bit bouncier than I wanted it to be. That's probably from the OEM shocks, you know, compressing more than they're supposed to and having less travel. Also, those upgraded shifter linkage bushings made a huge difference in reducing some of the sloppiness in the stock shifter. And as a whole, I am pretty freaking happy with how this car is coming out. As for future modifications, I would love to get a couple things to spice up the exterior. A larger intercooler, a catback exhaust, a KO4 turbo, that'd be awesome. And maybe even some rally lights on the front, because I am officially going on the Dust Ball Rally out west next year. I'm so pumped for this, and I really want the car to be in tip-top shape for that. On that note, thank you guys so much for sticking through the entire video and supporting my channel in general. I didn't even realize, but I reached 1 million channel views. Like, how cool is that? 1 million views on my channel. That's more than I can count. Seriously, super cool, and thank you for the support, guys. And I guess until next time, take care now. Bye-bye then.
Saki Nastravi.
Nastra.
What's dripping?